Here with Josh, and we're going to be talking about where public access television has been and where it's going. Our first question is really kind of an intro, and that's why was public access television made?
Well, in its inception, which actually happened in the Reagan years, believe it or not, the idea was that public access was a way for people like you and me who don't have a lot of money to be able to access the resources of broadcasting a large message out to the whole world. Television is enormously expensive. The infrastructure to send a signal is enormously expensive. And our country has a huge culture of leafleting, of pamphleting, of mass media being a mode of free speech.
Right.
You can only have free speech if everybody has access to the media, and heretofore public access is just that. It's let's provide the infrastructure, the means at either no cost or very little cost for people to be able to, show their things.
So this means an actual studio, equipment, editing capabilities,
editing cameras. In its inception, it was quite different, obviously, because the technology has changed, but the idea is basically the same, and the idea of live TV is basically the same as it was when they started out working this model.
Right.
And so you have a chance to see programming that as opposed to mega level programming, which is NBC is trying its hardest. And again, when this started, we didn't have the cable contract ideas that we have now, where you can actually literally watch a food network. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was so far out of left field during the days when this started out that you really couldn't have what you needed that way. So that's where this model was born from.
Let's go to a clip, first clip here, Josh, and get a sense of what this means to another broadcaster or another producer.
But yeah, so it's public access TV.
Right.
Which the whole idea in our inane 70,000 page IRS income tax code, which needs to be replaced by fairtax.org, which is basically a really neat kind of sales tax. It says that, if you set up a public access TV station, that people can donate to it. It's 501c3. They can deduct it from their income that they get taxed on. But you say, well, why? Well, the legislators in their infinite wisdom thought it would be wonderful to give the public access to the airwaves. And so I went up there one day a couple of years ago. You plunk down $50, and the station will air a half-hour show every week for a year. $50.
For the total year of $50.
$50, and it's the job of the board of directors and the executive director to raise the other $4,950 it really takes to show my show.
Right.
But that's the idea, is to make it really inexpensive for a member of the public to have a show that's broadcast locally.
Okay, so that's cleared up through a producer, local producer Jim, and what we'd like to do is segue into a definition of public access TV versus public TV versus commercial TV.
Okay, well, we'll start with commercial because that's probably the one that you're most familiar with. Commercial TV would be anything that is paid for by advertising, basically, or anything that you pay a subscription fee to watch, or anything basically where the purpose of it is to make money. So NBC to HBO covers the gamut of things that are commercial television.
It's advertising driven.
It's advertising driven, or in the case of HBO, it's subscription driven.
Right.
You pay in one way or another. We either buy food at McDonald's or we pay a subscription fee if we're less interested in buying food at McDonald's.
Sponsored by McDonald's.
Sponsored by McDonald's. And we pay for our television that way.
Right.
So this is going to appeal to a broad group of people because we don't want to offend people. Now, in the case of HBO, it's probably a little bit narrower because you're actually saying, I really want to watch that.
Right.
But it's still
Narrowcasting? Is that
it's narrowcasting,
Yeah.
but they're still driven by we want to make money, and so that's where everything's going to come from. Public television is financed through the states and nationally, but it still isn't people like you and me making television. It's basically, let's build some educational programming, something like Sesame Street, or this documentary about Idaho, or talking about issues, things like C-SPAN. They're paid for with public funds. Still important, still good, still kind of education driven by things that aren't monetary as much. It allows them more freedom that way.
Right.
I'm still not making that show, though. And
Right.
so it may not reflect my interests.
So really, public TV, PBS, et cetera, it's not viewers like you and me making it. We are the viewers. Somebody else is making it.
Exactly.
Okay.
You'll notice they say funded by.
Right.
It is totally funded by viewers like you and me. It is not so much made by viewers like you and me.
Right.
And then public access would be people ideally in the community where the station is held,
Yes.
making their own programming that is what they want to say, as opposed to all of the other things. So it's a little bit more direct. It's probably the most microcosmic version of television, or it used to be. There are obviously, and we may get to this, we may not, there are new things that allow people to do that in other ways as well.
Right. So we've got another.
And
another clip.
they're underfinanced.
Yeah, under finance. We're having a big moment here. If we could have a web clip now of this definition of public access.
But yeah, so it's public.
How do you? How do you? Again, why would you go to the trouble of making a show on television or through a studio for cablecast or broadcast when you can do it through YouTube?
We don't make a show with YouTube. That's just a place to put it.
To place it, yeah.
Via the internet, and but no, to make a show, studio's nice. It's a great studio at Fraser Valley Community Television at 6225 Overland in Boise. It's a great little studio. There's 3 professional cameras, and there's lighting. There's even green screen if you want to do that. And there's takeout equipment, cameras and boom microphones and whatever. So if you want to get field footage like we're doing right now, you can go just check out a camera. You don't pay 1 cent. And these are like $1,500, $2,000 cameras if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, and then there's editing stations. A lot of the producers, boy, they want to edit right down to the last millisecond. You know, if they touched a facial orifice, you know, like something like that. Oh, oops, I don't want to have that. So they want to edit, and instead of just broadcast live, which is what I kind of like to do.
Right.
But so there's editing stations there, which are basically PCs, personal computers with a tape deck and everything else you need, and the software, the state-of-the-art software from Adobe to do the, if you will, the post-production editing. And then you burn a DVD, and then you give it to the programming guy at the station, and they don't watch it. They just program it to air. And if somebody calls the station and says, hey, what's with that show? You say, whoa, call the producer. We don't watch it. You know, and they give the producer's phone number, and so the producer's sitting at home having a toddy after work or something and gets a phone call from somebody who wants to just laud him or her with infinite praise on how wonderful a show it was.
Or you get that a lot.
Or vice versa.
Yeah. Okay, great. Josh, let's talk about benefits of public access TV. What comes to mind first?
Well, there's sort of the benefits that were and the benefits that are. And I think it's important to kind of discuss it in that, that context, because it's an evolving thing. Television is an evolving thing. Media is an evolving thing. And the big thing that we're facing now is the internet, which has completely changed the game of how this works.
Right.
The benefits used to be, and the principal benefit used to be, that nobody could get access to the airwaves without having this particular form. Television and radio were the only ways that we got our information.
Compete with the gatekeepers too, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
that was the only way that we used to be able to get our information out. So if you wanted to have something that you really wanted to say to a lot of people, television was your option. Radio, and still to a large degree it is. I mean, I don't want to, NBC still gets way more views than any YouTube video. But because of things like the internet, it's gotten faster, YouTube has happened, and people younger than I am consume most of their media online. And so when they become old, people tend to stay in their viewer choices. They tend to stay in their habits of when they're young. It's the same reason people my age play video games now, and people your age do not. They played them when they were young.
When I get to your age, I hope to.
Yeah, exactly. They've adapted this thing. And so the internet increasingly is becoming where people are sending their content and viewing their content. Anybody can post anything online. Now, is that good? Is it going to get hits? Is it going to actually be something worth saying? Well, that's very debatable. But as far as actually getting your message out there, yes, absolutely. Everybody increasingly has access to that if they have access to the internet. Not everybody does, I realize, but increasingly people have easier access to broadband internet than they do to television studios. The other benefit that you get from a station like this, I think, is more, it's harder to see right up front, but it adds the literal community aspect of it. And I've harped on this again and again, I know, but community is regional in a lot of ways, and that still matters. It still matters to have the face-to-face. It still matters to have to deal with people who don't see the world way that you do.
Right.
And be forced to actually meet with them in a situation where it's not so easy to say really nasty things, because it makes you think through your arguments better. It makes you actually more cordial. It makes you more responsible, exactly. And there's that aspect of it, being forced to work together to make television, huge part of it. You don't really get that in other situations. You do get that here. Finally, learning what you're doing is a big thing. Learning how to make TV, as I think all of my students have learned over the semester, this is kind of hard. And one of the hardest thing about it is just getting the synergy of people, the moving parts to work the way they're supposed to. Right. That takes practice, it takes effort, it takes learning how we consume media and learning how media affects us. If you want to have an effective message, you need to know what media does to you. And so that's a big thing that you get out of this scenario as well.
You know, we did a short number of interviews in the Fred Meyer parking lot last weekend, and we'll see a clip in just a moment where we interviewed people and asked them what they would do with public access TV. Most of them were ignorant of that it existed, but it seemed to appeal to them. So let's see that clip. What would you do if you had a program?
Oh man, I don't know. That's a really good question. I really have no idea. I think I would make a program about like the little things that go on around Boise, like all the concerts and stuff that people miss, like community-wise. Yeah. Because I haven't ever seen anything like that, and sometimes you miss really cool things. So yeah, that'd be a good thing to have.
Do you have enough people that would network with you to get all that information, or?
Probably. I mean, I'm sure I could find people. I've never tried, so I don't know. Yeah. But I'm sure there's a lot of people around here that care about.
What would you think of doing?
I don't know, just something funny, you know, some comedy. Yeah. Laughter, you know. Yeah. Just like to spread the love.
Do you have friends that would help out?
Well, I mean, I have some friends that have some good ideas. I'm just not sure they're motivated enough.
Why don't you stop up sometime? You said something to me that you were doing something like a stand-up comedy at one time.
Yeah, I used to do amateur nights at the comedy club, the Funny Bone. And I guess it's called Liquid Laughs now. I'm thinking about going back and doing. I used to do stand-up comedy competitions, and so I think it's kind of something in the direction I want to go.
Oh, really?
And so when I do watch TV, it's more or less comedy, but you know.
Have you done this for solo on television?
No, I've never done anything like that. No.
Thinking about doing it, maybe?
The last time I got an interview was Channel 2, and they didn't film because the material was not appropriate.
Oh. Okay, so we're back, and we're here to discuss.
That's another thing that I like about TV is it's different. Like you show your work a little bit more when you're making programming here.
Yeah, it's more personal.
Yeah.
So if we'd end the program by discussing for a few minutes the new direction for TV11 from this, what do we call it, the soapbox kind of
I think
TV?
I don't think the idea is to change it from being a soapbox. It's just, okay, the public square is moving. We don't want to be the last one standing there.
Right. Let me give you some ideas of how this thing is being considered, that TV11 focus on, don't take it away from the individual producer, enhance that by high school and college and like the Boise State program, programs to produce their content, whether it's for broadcast, cablecast, or YouTube, or their personal website, but involve them earlier, you know, and walk off the street from the street. That's okay. We'll still produce, you know, that program. But the big effort is going to continue with nonprofits and foundations. There's a lot of nonprofits that are having a big problem making their program work effectively with the new media, with traditional media. So does that give you some sense of?
Those are all really good ideas. The education one I love. And I would say even younger than that. I would like to see more elementary aged kids, because we talked about this. This is like a big playground. Now these are tools, and obviously you have to teach just like you would if you were showing somebody a shop class. We don't burn our hands on the lights. We don't drop the lights on our heads. We don't trip over the cords. We're very careful.
How would you do that with what age? Middle school?
I think elementary age is it's not too young. These people are already going to be exposed to using a camera by the time they're like 4 or 5 in some cases.
What would you suggest? How would a class like that happen?
Well, you obviously need supervision, and you need to bring the teachers of the class who could kind of help explain how this is going to go. But to actually let these kids, if you could make this in some ways sort of, have you ever been to one of those science museums where they actually like let you kind of play with some of the stuff? If we had maybe like an old mixer that we just got somebody to donate, for example, it's like, this is how a mixer works. What is more fun for a kid than pressing buttons? That's literally all that is.
I think it's great. So we're going to end the program now and say goodbye for this week. Thank you, Josh, very much for stopping by.
Thank you, Steve.